In the 14th century, a young man from Morocco walked out of his hometown and did not return for nearly 30 years. By the time he came home, he had covered approximately 75,000 miles, more than any traveler before him in recorded history. He had crossed deserts so vast that caravans could vanish within them without a trace. He had sailed seas that European cartographers had barely imagined. He had dined with sultans, survived shipwrecks, witnessed plague, and walked the length of continents on foot. His name was Ibn Battuta, and his story is one of the greatest adventures in human history. Abu Abdallah Muhammad ibn Battuta was born in Tangier, Morocco, in the year 1304, into a family of Islamic legal scholars. The city of Tangier in that era was a bustling port on the Strait of Gibraltar, a crossroads between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, between Africa and Europe. From earliest childhood, Ibn Battuta was immersed in scholarship, in the study of Islamic law, language, and theology. He was educated, well-read, and deeply devout, but beneath that scholarly exterior burned something else entirely, an insatiable curiosity about the wider world. In June 1325, at just 21 years of age, Ibn Battuta set out from Tangier on what he intended to be a single pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a journey every Muslim who is able is called to undertake at least once in a lifetime. He rode alone, on a donkey, following the North African coast eastward. He later wrote that he had set out alone, with no companion to find pleasure in, and no caravan whose company he might enjoy. But the solitude did not last long. The road to Mecca was well-traveled, and he soon joined the streams of pilgrims flowing from across the Islamic world toward the holy city. What was remarkable was what happened next. Instead of returning home after the Hajj, Ibn Battuta simply kept going. Every new city offered another reason to stay, every new horizon another reason to press forward. He traveled through Egypt, marveling at Cairo, then one of the largest cities on earth, with a population historians estimate at 500,000 people. He described its markets as overflowing with every commodity imaginable, its scholars as the finest in the world, its river, the Nile, as a source of both life and wonder. He called it the mother of all cities, the mistress of broad provinces and fruitful lands. From Egypt, he moved into the Levant, visiting Jerusalem, Damascus, and the great cities of the Fertile Crescent. In Damascus, he stayed for weeks, studying under renowned scholars, absorbing knowledge as eagerly as he absorbed landscapes. It was also in Damascus that he received devastating news from home. Both his father and his mother had died during his absence. He grieved, and then he continued. The road had become something more than a pilgrimage route. It had become his life. His first Hajj completed, Ibn Battuta turned his eyes toward Persia and Iraq. He visited the ancient city of Basra, the magnificent ruins of Ctesiphon, and the thriving metropolis of Baghdad, though he arrived in the decades after its catastrophic destruction by the Mongols in 1258. Records suggest that Baghdad in his time was still struggling to rebuild, its libraries gone, its canals silted, yet its spirit and its scholars persisting. He noted this resilience with deep admiration. But these were merely the opening chapters of a journey that would span 3 decades and 4 continents. Ibn Battuta's ambition grew with every mile he covered. He made the Hajj a second time, and then a third. Each time, the return journey became an expedition of its own. He sailed down the eastern coast of Africa, visiting the Swahili city-states of Mombasa and Kilwa, prosperous, sophisticated trading cities that dazzled him with their wealth of gold and ivory. He wrote descriptions of these places so vivid and precise that modern historians and archaeologists have used his accounts to better understand the urbanization of medieval East Africa. From the African coast, he sailed across the Indian Ocean to the Malabar coast of India, landing at Calicut, a city buzzing with the commerce of spices, silks, and precious stones. India occupied him for years. He served as a judge, a diplomat, and even a representative of the Sultan of Delhi, Muhammad ibn Tughlaq, whose court was a center of power and unpredictability in equal measure. Ibn Battuta's relationship with the Sultan was tense and occasionally perilous. He recorded that the Sultan was generous to excess and cruel to excess in equal measure, a man whose favor could elevate you to the heavens and whose displeasure could end your life before sunset. It was the Sultan of Delhi who dispatched Ibn Battuta as an ambassador to China, a mission that became one of the most harrowing episodes of his long career. The diplomatic fleet was struck by a catastrophic storm on the Malabar coast. Ships sank. Gifts intended for the Chinese emperor were lost to the sea. Ibn Battuta himself barely escaped with his life, watching from the shore as a vessel carrying his companions went down before his eyes. His mission in ruins. Stripped of wealth and position, he spent the following years wandering through the Maldive Islands, where he served briefly as a judge, before eventually reaching the Malabar coast once more and resuming his eastward journey. He reached China. Historians debate precisely which cities he visited and described a land of extraordinary sophistication, paper currency, vast ceramic industries, rivers busy with enormous vessels. He was both impressed and unsettled, writing that China was the most beautiful country in the world for the traveler, yet he felt within it a sense of being utterly estranged from everything he knew. Everywhere he went outside the Muslim communities, he felt like a stranger in a strange land, yet he kept going. Returning westward, Ibn Battuta passed through Central Asia, visiting the cities of the Golden Horde, the great Mongol successor state of the Eurasian steppe. He visited Constantinople, then still the capital of the Byzantine Empire, at the invitation of the Byzantine emperor. He described the great cathedral of Hagia Sophia with awe, noting its sheer scale and the devotion of its Christian worshippers, writing about it with respectful curiosity rather than antagonism. This openness to encountering other faiths and cultures on their own terms is one of the qualities that makes his account so extraordinarily valuable to modern scholars. He crossed the vast grasslands of the Kipchak steppe, visited the cities of Bukhara and Samarkand in Central Asia, ancient centers of Islamic learning and commerce, before descending once more into Persia and Arabia. By this point in his travels, he had been on the road for over 2 decades. Most men would have come home. Ibn Battuta turned toward West Africa. In 1352, now in his late 40s, he crossed the Sahara Desert with a caravan of merchants, pressing southward into the Mali Empire, one of the wealthiest and most powerful kingdoms on earth at the time, famous for its control of trans-Saharan gold and salt routes. He visited its cities, observed its courts, and recorded detailed accounts of its governance, its commerce, and its customs. His notes on Mali remain among the most important primary sources historians possess for understanding that civilization in its prime. He was honest in his observations, recording both what impressed him and what puzzled or disturbed him, making his account a document of genuine intellectual engagement rather than mere propaganda. When Ibn Battuta finally returned to Morocco for the last time, he was approximately 49 years old. The Sultan of Morocco, Abu Inan Faris, recognized that this man's experiences were too extraordinary to be lost to time. He appointed a scholar named Ibn Juzay to sit with Ibn Battuta and record his memories in a formal literary account. The result was the Rihla, meaning simply the journey, a document that stretches across dozens of countries and decades of lived experience. It is imperfect. Some passages historians have questioned, some timelines are inconsistent, and scholars continue to debate certain claims. But the overwhelming body of the work has been corroborated by archaeology, by other contemporary accounts, and by the internal coherence of a man who clearly saw what he said he saw. Marco Polo, the Venetian traveler whose name is perhaps more widely known in the Western world, covered an estimated 15,000 miles in his journeys through Asia. Ibn Battuta covered 5 times that distance. He visited the equivalent of 44 modern countries. He crossed nearly every major civilization of the medieval world. and he did so not as a conqueror or a merchant seeking profit, but as a scholar and a pilgrim, driven by an almost inexhaustible desire to understand the world that lay beyond the next horizon. What Ibn Battuta left behind is more than a travel account. It is a portrait of the medieval Islamic world at its most interconnected, a civilization that stretched from the Atlantic coast of Morocco to the shores of the South China Sea, bound together by shared faith, shared language, and shared scholarship. Wherever he went, he could find a mosque, find a judge, find a scholar who had read the same texts he had studied as a boy in Tangier. That network of connection was the infrastructure of his journey, and his journey was its greatest testament. He died around 1368 or 1369. The exact date, like many details of his remarkable life, remains uncertain, but his words endure. They have been translated into dozens of languages, studied by historians on every continent, and mined by scholars seeking to understand the medieval world in all its complexity, its commerce, its beauty, and its humanity. Ibn Battuta did not simply travel the world. He bore witness to it, and in doing so, he gave all of us, centuries later, a window into a world that might otherwise have been lost. If you found this journey through history fascinating, there are many more stories waiting for you on this channel.